Hi, I'm Nicole Alvarez for KROQ with the one and only, and my buddy, I could say, because it's been a long time, Mr. Mike Shinoda. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
I was thinking about, we're sitting here because we're going to talk about the anniversary of Meteora, which was 20 years ago. When I say 20 years ago, does that seem like 5 minutes ago to you? Or does that seem like, yeah, it really does feel like it was that long ago?
When we started putting together the thing that became this package that's coming out, this box set and all of the stuff with it.
We'll get there.
It felt like, oh, that's not that long ago. And then I watched some of the footage from that time and I'm like, we are babies, like we're children, so wildly immature. So now I really get a context of like how long ago it was.
I was thinking of when Meteora dropped, which was March 2003, and it had such an explosive entrance. It was just accolades and 7 times platinum and #1 here and there and awards. And what it did on the heels of the best-selling debut album of the 21st century at the time, which was Hybrid Theory, No Pressure. So before we get to when you dropped Meteora and its success, let's start at the beginning. What was the very first hint of Meteora and when?
I remember we were on tour nonstop for Hybrid Theory. We did, at one point, it said that we did 300 shows in the span of 365 days. We were always on tour. There was a period at which we followed Winter around the globe for months. Like we called it the endless, like privately, we called it the Endless Winter Tour.
The Endless Winter Tour.
We just kept getting sick. We kept, it was exhausting. And at a certain point, our manager had the foresight to be like, hey, wouldn't it be fun, wouldn't it spice things up if on this summer tour, when you're back in the States, if we put some recording equipment in the bus and you can kind of start to think about the next record, because I think you guys, I think it would be good for you. I think it's time to start thinking about it.
That's interesting because I always figured it should be the artist that says, okay, we're ready, but that seed was planted for you.
Yeah, well, it was because.
Okay.
Because all of this was the first time, even if you were think about it, even if you were a manager or a person that worked at Warner Records or whatever, no one had ever seen this type of success before.
Okay.
They had never, if you put it in the context of today, imagine the biggest artists you can think of out there, whether you're talking about, Beyonce, Jay-Z, whether you're talking Bad Bunny, whether you're talking about Post Malone, Halsey, whatever it is. You, who a few months ago were living in your parents' house, have an album that you are now bigger than them. Okay. And it's been maybe a year. And we were looking at each other wait, is that, not really though, right? We didn't wrap our heads around it. Okay. We said it, but we didn't understand it.
And you were babies, right? In retrospect.
We were 20-something years old. I mean, at the time, 24-ish. So the suggestion to do that wasn't a thing that people did. It was we're all flying by the seat of our pants. You guys seem like this is this would feel good and it's the right time. And I could have been no, that doesn't work for me. I don't want to do that. It's too much. But I knew it was a good idea. It felt great. I came home from a tour. I was throwing together song ideas at home. And then I was doing that every time we came home anyway, but they were just weird little jams. And then I got in the bus on, I think it was our summer tour in the States, might have been a Project Revolution tour, our first one or second one or something. Might have been first. And it was so old, just to give you a context of how far back it was, YouTube was just getting started.
Wow.
Google was relatively new as well. To record a song on a computer in the bus, you needed a setup that was the size of a full-size refrigerator.
Okay.
The computer setup for recording was the size of a fridge.
Are cell phones a thing? I don't think so.
Cell phones existed, but you couldn't, there was no smartphones, no GPS on the phone,
memo,
no
garage
videos,
band.
none of that.
Okay, so mostly would you say Meteora came to be on a tour bus? Or
It
while
started.
touring?
So the beginnings of it were there, and then we came off that tour, and I don't know if we did any touring after that, but it was pretty soon after that we were home, and I was making demos at my house for Meteora.
What was the first song written, and did you know the direction, and not only like just the emotional direction of the album, but the artistic direction as far as like just artwork and everything? Was that pretty clear in advance?
Whenever I'm on any record, like the beginnings of it are fuzzy. There's no first song.
Okay.
There's no moment that everything like starts to happen. It's all like, because some of the ideas might be like things that came to me in the shower in the car, right? And so stuff just kind of like I'd make little notes, or I'd record it into something and come back to it and be like, oh yeah, that was a good one. I love that little piece. I love that little beat. I love that little riff. I love that lyric. I know that like the context, one thing you have to also realize is that the band, so going into Meteora, we had this wildly successful first album. Still is like one of the top debut albums of all time. And is it the biggest of this century?
According to my professional notes, it was the biggest debut, at least of the time of the 21st century.
Yeah, and we had the pressure of that. We had the pressure on ourselves to perform because there was a rumor that had gone around. It started in Europe, the rock, like the kind of like tabloidy rock magazines in Europe. And they said, oh, the reason this band is so big out of nowhere is because they're actually manufactured by the record label. They didn't even know each other before they started, and they didn't write their songs. It's all assembled by like an industry plant.
Yeah, like a Menudo, like a boy band. When it got back to you guys, were you personally
I love that you went Menudo.
I don't know,
of all of the references, that's great. There wasn't no NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, no like.
I'm a Spanish girl.
That's really great. Okay, Menudo. So there was like a Menudo.
Okay, or NSYNC for those of you that don't know Menudo.
And that was harmful to us at the time. It was meant to be hurtful. It was meant to make us look bad, and it was a lie. And so, but to go into like, there was even a time where we did a magazine cover shoot, and they were like, okay, we're gonna shoot each of you individually, and then like comp together this thing for the cover. And they didn't really explain what that meant. We just thought they were gonna put all of us together in the cover. And the magazine came out, and they had painted test tubes and put us each in a test tube.
Rude.
Yeah, they didn't say that's what they were gonna do, but they was referring to the fact that we were manufactured. It was so sneaky.
Well,
and okay, so rude. We were coming off of that, and that was the thing we were fighting, and we said, when we do this record, here's like our agenda. Number one, make something great. Like make something that's so good that they'll go, I can't believe they did it again. Number two, capture it. Show them how we write. Show them how we come up with the song so they can't argue it another way. And number three, and maybe most important, we got to advance the conversation. We got to do stuff on the record that they don't see, fans don't see coming, other people don't, critics, whatever. But most importantly, fans and other groups don't see coming, because we can't get trapped in the sound of hybrid theory. If we do too much of that, we're going to get stuck in it.
It's very ballsy. That's a very ballsy frame of mind to be in.
So that's the reason that on the record you'll have songs like Breaking the Habit and Session and Nobody's Listening, and even to some degree Faint. Faint would never have lived on the first record. Like, it was a new record kind of song. So those were all important. In fact, two of those that I just mentioned were singles. It was like us going like, you gotta put that out front so people know that this is an evolution.
Very successful singles. Yeah.
Lucky for us.
can you tell me about each of you, like what each of you contributed, like individually, like what was like maybe your fingerprint on it, Chester's fingerprint on it, like, just go around the room a little bit and tell me what everybody infused.
I think that a lot of the fans understand that, like, they used to call me, back then they started calling me the glue. They understand that I have my hands in everything, and I was always just trying to, like, it wasn't me like doing everything. That's not why that was the name. It was because I did have a vision for the big picture, and I wanted to make sure all of this stuff was in sync and happening. So whatever it came to, the whether it was the art direction in the album or the website or the little buttons on the website or the merchandise or the sound of the record or who we picked for photos or blah, 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 like I was on it all. I was on trying to be on every meeting. Most importantly though, I actually didn't know at the time, I didn't get a production credit on Meteora because I didn't know what a producer was. Okay. And that was my real role, is that more than if I only did one thing in the band, it'd be write and produce. That'd be my core thing. Okay. Joe and I met at art school. So Joe was like, from aesthetic point of view, and I mean aesthetic in terms of culture, he was my guy. Like we were all, we'd say an artist's name or like a painter or a graphic designer or like another band who has a cool vibe, and we'd be like, yeah, that's so cool. And the other guys are like, I don't know what you're talking about.
And he did. That was his wheelhouse.
Yeah. Brad was very strategic, has always been very strategic and organized. He actually has trouble sometimes getting out of that frame of mind and getting into just like a wildly creative frame of mind. He's very left-brainy that way. So he's especially when it comes to like legal stuff and whatever.
Everybody needs one of those.
It's like he's better at it than anybody in a band that I've heard of. Dave is he's our like almost like in band philosopher. Oh. That was actually one of his. He double majored, but philosophy was he was going to go into seminary.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about him.
Yeah.
This is really cool information.
Yeah. So put that into the context of Rob, who is like late to everything, always a good vibe, and like when we're playing and when whatever, like he just wants to contribute and like he's the drummer, almost like the cartoon of the drummer, where it's like it's quiet, personality wise, and just holds it together because if he makes one mistake, everyone's looking at the drummer, like correct. Right? Yeah. You just assume he's gonna nail it.
Because it's the heartbeat, and it's almost like it has if he makes a mistake, it's like you had a heart attack or like a little palpitation that wasn't supposed to be there, and everybody's a little off. So
Chester from the beginning was like the fiery, emotive, obviously mouthpiece of the band, and he and I, when we'd write together, at the time of Meteora, I still didn't know all his stories, and he didn't know all of mine. Okay. And it's worth mentioning because later we did know each other's stories, unless it was a new story. But all the history, like I didn't have to. I'd write a thing and be like, this in 2015, I'd be like, this song is about that one time when you were a kid and this happened, and he'd be like, I love that, like, because I knew.
So cool.
But at the time of Meteora, he could tell me a story about his past, and I'd be like, I didn't know that. So we write a song about it.
So you learned about each other while you were making music.
It was like,
this wasn't like late at night campfire.
No, it was in the bus after. It was in the bus after shows too, just vibing,
just very cool,
just hanging out,
cool moments. Okay.
Yeah, it's like the world's longest summer camp.
Oh, that's freaking fantastic! I love these stories.
But also hard. Like we were going through something completely unique, and nobody else could relate the way we could to each other. We were like, even somebody 1 degree outside, our tour manager, our stage manager, our manager, our bus driver who was there every day, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, obviously, like.
No, it's a different frequency because you guys connect on like a molecular level.
We had a friend, we have a friend named Mark who was best friends with Phoenix growing up. They played soccer together. They like went to like, I think they went to like junior high together. We needed somebody to shoot video at the time. And I remember Dave said, like, my friend Mark, he's like one of my best friends. I played music with him. He's the best guy. Like, we need somebody to shoot video, and he has a video camera. He can shoot for us, and he's good at it. We were like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, as long as it's somebody who we can like enjoy being around.
Be ourselves around.
Yeah, they can't. We don't want anybody because this guy came on board and was just such a like. He knew exactly when to be a fly on the wall. He knew exactly when to get in the mix and like ask you for something to shoot. Like, will you say this? Will you talk about this? And ended up like over the course from then until whenever, he ended up like innovating the way a videographer shoots a band. Like, people still use techniques that they don't even know Mark made up at the time.
Wow.
He like was borrowing from like a lot of our friends who were like skaters and stuff.
Yeah.
We were tight with a lot of the crew from DC Shoes, and Mark would grill them about how do you make this video look so good? And they're like, oh, do you have any GoPros? And he's like, no, I don't have any. Okay, so if you get a couple GoPros, you can set up a multicam. One human can make it look like 3 people are filming.
Yeah.
And so you do it kind of this way. And Mark was like, oh, and then he'd adapt that and whatever.
And he would translate it his own way.
Yeah. So the reason I mention that is
we're going to see some of it in the
when we were starting this whole thing about putting together the package for Meteora, we found what became 90 minutes of that footage that people basically like, they've only seen little bits of it. Like, it's mostly this brand new footage from that time.
Oh God, I'm so excited.
And we're babies.
so
We're just
excited.
so immature.
I'm so excited for this.
I'm so fucking annoying.
I can't wait. Because I don't know you as annoying, so it's going to be really cool to like revisit. Because maybe when I met you, I was equally as annoying, and so we just like met at that frequency.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Before we get to the box set, so Meteora is out. It's a huge success, and then you take it on the road. I want to talk about the fans, their reception, and what you remember from being on the road and touring with those songs, and what resonated with you when you looked out into the crowd. Because Linkin Park fans are unlike any other fan base to this day that I've ever seen.
Yeah. I'm still shocked that remains true.
Yeah.
People, I don't think, like, I don't even know if the fan base itself knows that it's as unique as it is.
I think that's the beauty of it. They don't.
Yeah, it's interesting.
They just show up.
So, I'm not sure if like things like chat rooms and message boards were happening quite yet, but during the course of that cycle,
it all started.
During the course of that cycle, YouTube became a thing, and people were like, it's like, well, we want to put something up on YouTube other than like clips of ourselves. Like, people started editing together their favorite things and putting music to it. And the music they put to it was Linkin Park, and oftentimes the thing they edited was anime, like Naruto and Dragon Ball Z and stuff.
Crazy.
So we still to this day have this insane connection with
That world.
that format of, that world. And I think almost like unfortunately, file sharing was starting to happen, and like LimeWire, what became LimeWire, like at Napster and stuff like that. And I feel like you'd have like a 50% chance if you downloaded Numb on one of those, you had like a 50% chance that it wasn't actually Numb, it was just like a virus.
Oh my God. I got a few of those.
People were getting crushed on those. And at one point they, like I said, there's a lot of rumors going around. At one point they were like, oh yeah, this is the record label doing this.
I mean, you never know. I remember that time. God, that was hectic. What song, when you took Meteora on the road, what song resonated, do you think, with the fans the most from the get-go?
It's hard to say. I mean, we came out with Somewhere I Belong was the first single. I don't know if we did like a street track, like a secondary song with it. To me, personally, the moment that felt like a lift like a big jump up was Faint.
Oh, okay.
I feel like Faint, like Somewhere I Belong was like, the guys are back, this is the new sound, it's not that far from the old sound, so we like that, and we're just happy to keep it rolling. But once the album came out and we put out like a video for Faint, which was directed by Mark Romanek, who we were big fans of, he's an incredible director, the tone changed. Like there was a moment of like, I don't know, I feel like we were like really looking to the future with it and starting to say like, okay, we know that we're goofy ass kids, but we also want to be a mature band. Like we want to grow up too. Yeah. And so I think that's when it kind of started to happen to me.
Was there a song
by the way, and the fans were mirroring that. Like it was starting to change.
To evolve.
Yeah.
Was there a song that you watched Chester sing and maybe connect to the most when he took Meteora on the road?
Okay, so I'll tell you something that's like, it's not exactly what you're asking, but what it made me think of.
Okay. I'll take
that. Well, it might be more interesting.
Okay.
He was getting worn out singing Crawling. Crawling is hard to sing. It's really hard. And when you've only got one album that's like 45 minutes long and you've got to play 60 plus minutes of a show, like you got to have Crawling in there every night. Yeah. It was a huge single.
Yeah.
We won a Grammy. Like you have to play it. And he was just so happy. He was like, couldn't wait to have another body of work that he could mix and match into the set with us. And so he didn't have to just sing that one song every single time. He could we could put it in and pull it back. So eventually, I think we started by leaving it in for a while, but eventually we got to swap it out a little bit. And he found other songs and other ways. Like if you hear songs like Faint, which is a very aggressive vocal, really high, for some reason, the way we wrote it and the way he sang it wasn't nearly as, it never gave him trouble. He never complained about Faint. And to my ear, it sounds like an even more difficult vocal, but it's not.
They all sound difficult every time, and I talked about this with the fans, like, he gave everything vocally, and I just don't know how he did that night after night. It was pretty damn impressive, I must say.
The hardest, he say all the time, the hardest thing for him to sing wasn't the screaming. Screaming was easy.
It was the softer parts?
It was loud. It was louder, soaring vocals, Crawling.
Okay, yeah, that makes
that
sense.
That style of vocal was the hardest thing on his voice. It would just wear him out.
That makes sense. Now let's get to the massive, and I mean massive, gift that you're giving fans, which is the box set. But I want to talk first about intention versus expectations, because you have the intention of giving the fans this incredible, like, songs they've never heard and footage. Yeah. Some of the fans still assume all the time that come an anniversary, Linkin Park's going back on the road. So how do you navigate those expectations?
Yeah, I told them,
don't do that.
In the Discord, I think we just opened up our Linkin Park Discord.
Yes,
it's brand new.
Congrats.
Yeah, I told them right away. I was like, well, I'll say it this way. Normally, I'm really trying to just manage expectations a little bit, especially lately in the last few years. It's like there's certain things that are going to be on the table, certain things that are off the table. With this release, shockingly, I was like, I don't think there's very much to say is off the table. Touring is the only thing. We're not touring right now. But the rest of their imagination, where I know their heads are going to go, is like, oh, is there this? Is there that? Can we do this? Can we do that? I think to a lot of that, it's yes. Like, I know that they're going to be really pleased with what this Meteora, I want to call it an album because it feels more like an album release than it does like a box set or whatever.
It's an experience. It's an extravaganza.
It's so big. So I look at the thing. It's like 5 vinyl records. It's 3 DVDs. It's 4 CDs. It's a book of art and photos and things that we didn't release.
Poster stickers.
Poster stickers.
There's like a stencil.
It's so comprehensive.
It's got everything.
But part of the reason why it's so comprehensive and it's so good is that it was the moment in time when all those things started to get captured. We weren't capturing everything when we were in the studio in Hybrid Theory because we were just kids living in our parents' house.
Which is bananas to think about.
We were in apartments. Like,
okay.
I was still like staying
for
at
a
my
fact, yeah.
I was still like going to my parents' house for the weekends to do laundry.
Yeah.
It wasn't
maybe
like
for a good home cooked meal.
Yeah, we weren't rock stars.
Yeah. Do you feel like a rock star now? Has that persona ever kind of taken over?
I don't give a shit about any of that.
Cool. No, it doesn't seem like you do.
What I do think about this, like, the reason that this feels like the right thing at the right moment to me right now is when we looked into it, we didn't say we're gonna make a 20th anniversary for Meteora. What do we have? We said, should we do it? What do we have? So we looked at the stuff we had and found more stuff, and then found more stuff, and then found more stuff. We found this song, Lost, which is like, it was a mixed and mastered Linkin Park Meteora song. Like, it was a done deal, and we didn't, with all of these things, my effort, like the philosophy was, don't really touch it. Like, present it the way that it was presented. It would have been presented back then. If you don't have to mix it, if you don't have to master it, don't do it. So we stuck very closely to that.
What's the message behind Lost?
Well, Lost at the time, if I remember right, it was a long time ago. So I think the vibe on that, there's a vibe of like, the inspiration for it was looking back on things that are like, you get memories that you get just sucked into.
Yeah.
Right? And you just get immersed in that nostalgia or good feeling or bad feeling or whatever. In the case of this song, I think there was a bunch of not so good stuff, but it's bittersweet. It's a mixed bag because there's good stuff in there too. Like, things aren't black and white or cut and dry. And so that's what I like about the song, the lyrics of the song. But it's also a song that it was this close to being on the record. So when you make an album, if you end up with 12 songs, you might have made 20 something songs more. And at some point you put them in kind of an order of like, these are the best ones, and then from there it goes down. And the one right on the other side of the line was this song Lost. And the only reason it didn't go on is because it had the same like intensity as Numb. And so we were like, oh, we've already got that song, so we're gonna keep Numb, we're gonna lose Lost.
But now is the time. Now it's now it's going to take on a whole life of its own.
Right.
So it's just the way that things work. The universe is wild, man. So before I let you go, if Chester were here sitting with us, man, I think about him all the time. I'm sure everybody does. But what would he say about Meteora in retrospect?
Oh man.
Was he proud of that record?
He would make a joke about it sucking. Like the process, not the album, the material sucking, but the process of doing it, of the touring and whatever, and it would be a joke. Like he loved touring. Like, it'd be a nightmare sometimes to tour, but he loved touring. He was partially because he was really good at it. Somebody asked me if he would, like, how he would feel about releasing these things that were in some cases. So like I said, like, this anniversary package has a bunch of songs that aren't quite finished. And we had to ask ourselves, like, okay, do we want to like put this song out into the world that has these like undercooked performances?
Yes, you
including
do.
Right,
yes.
Including his and including mine. And I think that's what I think all of us kind of subscribe to, this idea of, and I include him in it just as a guest, but I think that we subscribe to this idea of, like, if you're gonna do it, like, don't fake it. Like,
be honest.
It's
honest and
so
transparent.
the songs that are on there, I had the opportunity to go in on a couple of them. We had, there's a song called Fighting Myself in this batch as well. And I always remember that song as having 2 verses and no chorus. That's as far as we got with it. And then our manager found a copy of it. They're like, sent it to me like, Mike, listen to this. And it had a chorus on it. And I was like, wait, I don't remember doing this chorus. Do we have more? Like, where is that? What is that song? Do we have multi-tracks? And he's like, I think we found them all. And he found the session with the multis. They were like exported. So I got to take them in the computer and pick through what was there. And we had the makings of a chorus that was like 90% done.
That you didn't even realize you had.
To the listener, it's done.
Yeah.
To me, I knew we had more further to go. But I was like, you know, I could like re-record some of my verses and make the lyrics better and improve the song or whatever. But yeah, that's not what this is.
No.
What this is about. This is about 2003 or whatever.
That's who you were.
Right? So
yeah.
For this one, I'm not saying that's what we will always do.
Yeah.
If we were to do this anymore.
But for this experience.
For this one, 100%.
Okay. Thank you for this experience, because it's not a box set. It's so much more than that. So another world to dive into. It's a huge experience. We miss you on stage and touring all the time. What is next for Mike Shinoda?
Up until this year, I've been doing a lot of like writing and producing for other people. And I recently kind of got the bug to do it for myself again.
Is this an
having
exclusive?
Nothing to do.
This is kind of
having
an
nothing
exclusive.
to do with this. So I do have a new song that's going to be in the movie Scream.
Oh wow! And
yeah,
like,
well, so what happened is they had reached out about like, will you help us with the music for the movie? And in the conversation, it was like, oh yeah, like I played them something, and they were like, oh my god, can we use that? Can it go in the like? Can you finish the song?
Coming out any minute.
I didn't plan it. I would never have been like, oh, we're gonna put out this big Linkin Park thing, and then I want to put my song out right on top of it. That's like a bad.
No.
That's not good planning for me.
The universe planned it for you.
Great planning for the Linkin Park fans, because there's just more music. So I've got stuff I've produced that are other people's songs. I got my own song, and we got the Linkin Park stuff. So it's great. And that's not even everything that we're going to be doing around this for Linkin Park fans. So it's a great time to be a Linkin Park fan.
It's always a great time to be a Linkin Park fan, and watching it all kind of just roll out, watching you guys grow up, having so many experiences with Linkin Park and KROQ. I feel like the two go hand in hand. It's been an honor and a pleasure, and I'm so glad that we're friends, and I cannot wait for everybody to get their hands on the Linkin Park experience, which is April, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Beginning of April. Meteora 20 is
Mike,
what we're
you're one
calling
of
it.
a kind.
Thank you. You too.
Put her here. Thanks, babe. I'm Nicole Alvarez with Mike Shinoda and the world famous KROQ. Thank you for watching.